Chapter 4 of The Wheel of Fortune by a Self-Made Man. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4. Bert takes a hand in the defense of Lawyer Potts' property.
"Oh, Father, what are you coming to?"
murmured Bert Hawley as he watched the only relative he had in the world vanish, with his scoundrelly associates, into the intricacies of Farmer Whiteacre's wood. He climbed out of the dry ditch and stood in the path once more.
"They're going to rob Lawyer Potts' house tonight. What shall I do? If I notify the constable as I ought to do, Father will probably be arrested and sent to state prison for a crime he has been persuaded to take part in to satisfy an old-time grudge against the lawyer. No, I must try and prevent this robbery myself. It is my duty to save my father, if possible, from the consequences of this folly. I'll go to the Potts' house at once, see Miss Helen, who should have returned home by this time, and together we may be able to devise ways and means of frightening these men away. But I do hope I may be able to head Father off and have a talk with him. It is terrible to think of the character of the company he is in."
So Bert, fully resolved to save Lawyer Potts' property from pillage, hurried in the direction which would bring him out of the wood and into the road. A few minutes of brisk walking sufficed to accomplish this. Then he bent his steps toward the lawyer's house, which stood quite alone at the end of Main Street, where it made a junction with the county road. It was a rather pretentious-looking building, the best, in fact, in Jayville, and a stranger viewing it would naturally have concluded that its owner was more than comfortably supplied with this world's goods. This was indeed the fact, for Lawyer Potts was accounted wealthy by those who knew him. He enjoyed the cream of the county law practice, and was one of the council of a big Virginia coal company. Therefore he was much deferred to in Jayville, and his family was regarded as among the leaders socially of the county. It was quite dark when Bert approached the front gate of Lawyer Potts' residence. He had met no one since he lost sight of his father and the two rascals with him in the wood. Now, however, he made out an indistinct figure coming up the street. When he reached the gate, the solitary person coming toward him turned out to be a girl with a light hood over her head. Instinctively it struck him that this was Helen Potts returning home, and such proved to be the fact.
"Why, Bert Hawley, is that you?"
exclaimed the pretty miss, who had already identified the boy as he stood with one hand on the latch of the gate waiting for her to come up.
"Yes, Miss Helen. Were you coming to see us?"
she asked, offering her hand, which he took with unfeigned eagerness.
"I'm afraid Father and Mother haven't returned from town yet. They did not expect to get home until late. I'm glad I got back in time to meet you. I should have been greatly disappointed had I missed you." "Thank you, Miss Helen," said Bert. "I called this afternoon to say goodbye, as it was my intention to leave Jayville this evening, but now that will be impossible." "Are you really going to leave the village so soon?" said the girl gravely, as if the news was not welcome to her. "Yes, I have got to make my own way in the world, you know, and Jayville is just not the kind of place for one to get ahead in very fast." "Then you have given up all idea of farming," she said. "I have very little taste for such a life," he admitted. "I want to go where there are opportunities to rise to something worthwhile." "I can hardly blame you, Bert," she answered earnestly. "I heard Papa say that you are a bright boy, and that Jayville offered few attractions for a boy of your caliber. I hope I shall prove myself deserving of your father's good opinion," said Bert gratefully. "I know you will," replied the girl with some enthusiasm, which, however, subsided all of a sudden as she looked into his face and reflected that this maybe was the last time she might ever see him. Helen was a bright little girl, with ambitions of her own, and she had long since taken a great fancy to Bert Hawley, because he was such a gentlemanly boy, and had been willing to put his hand at anything to support his poor mother and worthless father. She admired the self-sacrificing spirit of the lad, the energy and the perseverance he had displayed in this line of duty, all of which had won for him the respect and consideration of everyone who knew him. She felt sad to think that she was about to lose his society, for she had spent many pleasant hours in his company at one time or another. He had somehow come to be her ideal of a noble, manly young fellow, a standard not attained by any of her prosperous young male acquaintances with whom she was allowed to associate.
It made her blush to think how little her own brother Jonas resembled this brave, earnest example of what young America, in her opinion, ought to be. "I think we had better go in, Miss Helen," said Bert, throwing an anxious glance up and down the road as he opened the gate for her to pass through. "I don't want to alarm you, but I have come here on a very serious errand." "Why, what do you mean?" she said, looking at him in surprise. "I thought you said you came to bid us good-bye, since you're about to leave the village." "I said I called this afternoon for that purpose, and was much disappointed to find you out. I expected by this time to be on my way to Rye Junction to take the night train for Baltimore. But while passing through Farmer Whiteacre's wood half an hour ago, I overheard some men, I regret to say my father was one of them, plan to break into your house early tonight for the purpose of robbery." "Rob our house?" gasped Helen, turning white. "Yes, such is their intention. They know that your father and mother, as well as your brother, are away. In some way the leader of the enterprise has found out that Farmer Whiteacre called there this morning after your parents had left, and paid you a large sum of money. They believe that only yourself and the 2 women servants will be in the house when they reach here, and therefore count on having things pretty much their own way." "You frighten me," cried the girl, all of a tremble. "Don't be alarmed, Miss Helen. I think with such help as I can give you, we will be able to beat them off. We are forewarned what to expect, and that is half the battle, to my way of thinking." They had reached the porch while speaking, and Helen hurriedly put her key into the lock of the front door and admitted them to the house. "You are so good and brave to think of us, Bert. I shall never forget it, nor will Papa and Mamma when I have told them," said the girl earnestly as she led him into the library, where a light was burning dimly, as was the custom when the master of the house was temporarily absent at night. "Did you really mean that your father is—" She paused suddenly, as if she thought it almost cruel to remind the boy of the painful admission he had made. "My father, yes," replied the lad with a catch in his breath. "It is true, but I'm sure that he's being led by the other 2 men. Oh, Miss Helen, he has been a drunkard, I confess with shame. He did not do the right thing by Mother for some years, but he has not been a criminal as yet. I want to save him from that awful degradation, if I can. It would almost crush me if he were to be sent to prison. You will help me save him from that, will you not, Miss Helen? I will do anything I can to prevent such a thing for your sake, Bert." "Thank you," replied the boy gratefully. "And now we best prepare ourselves against this attack. Have you a revolver in the house?" "Papa has one in the bedroom," she replied a bit nervously. "It is always loaded. I wish you would get it for me, as it may serve to scare these men away when they see we are prepared for them." Bert forebore to tell her that he knew that at least one of the rascals was provided with a similar weapon. He waited in the library until Helen brought the pistol to him. "I don't suppose the servants have gone to bed yet. It is only 8:30. "I don't believe they have," replied the girl. "These men propose to break in through the window of the washroom. I mean to be there when they come and give them an unexpectedly warm reception." "You mustn't expose yourself, Bert," said Helen in an anxious tone, laying one hand on the boy's arm. "Don't worry about me. I'm not going to run into danger if I can help it. But I'm here to defend you, as well as your father's property, and I mean to do my duty." "But, Bert—" "Don't say another word, Miss Helen. There is no time to be lost if I am to keep the men from forcing an entrance. Let us go to the back of the house. I think the washroom communicates with the kitchen. We'll call the cook and have her start the fire going. I want to use hot water as one of my weapons. It is very effective without being exactly dangerous. I've known of many a husky tramp put to flight by a plucky woman armed with a kettle of water." The servants were called into action, and Bert found that Mary, the cook, was no faint-away kind of person, but as spunky as she was big and strong. "Faith, it's myself that'll help you to bait off the thieves, Master Hawley, so I will. And hot water is an elegant thing to make a man run, so it is." And so preparations to receive their undesirable visitors were soon under way. End of chapter 4.